a vehicle that was very closely associated with one of World War II's most famous generals, and one of the British Empire's greatest World War II victories, was, rather surprisingly, American. The man I'm hinting at, of course, was Field Marshal Sir Bernard Montgomery. Loved by the British, loathed by the Americans, and today still deeply dividing opinion some 49 years after his death at the grand old age of 88 in 1976, one of the last surviving World War II field marshals and generals at the time of his passing. And the vehicle I'm referring to was a tank, an American tank. This Grant, now displayed at the Imperial War Museum Duxford without fanfare or acclaim, which is a bit of a shame. The vehicle and its long-dead owner were associated most closely with one of World War II's true turning points, the Battle of El Alamein in 1942, when Montgomery defeated the famous Desert Fox, German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, and sent his Afrika Korps and his Italian allies reeling back in retreat across the western desert after years of warfare in North Africa, winning the first significant victory against Hitler and signaling the end of Hitler's African ambitions. I must have walked past this Grant tank dozens of times during my visits to Duxford since childhood and never thought anything of it. The Imperial War Museum certainly doesn't highlight this vehicle's crucial role in one of the British Empire's greatest victories, or its association with one of Britain's greatest military heroes, which strikes me as rather odd and a little disconcerting at the same time. You may notice something a little strange about this Grant tank. The top turret gun barrel is in fact made of wood, the 37mm anti-tank gun having been removed to accommodate more communications equipment. Why? Because this was a command tank, from which Montgomery, then a lieutenant general, directed the 1942 Battle of El Alamein. So why was Monty using an American tank? Before the US entered World War II, it was nonetheless willing to sell weapons and equipment to Britain, which was acutely short of tanks following the Dunkirk evacuation in summer 1940. Domestic tank production was insufficient, and the US M3 Lee tank seemed to offer a stopgap solution. The British didn't particularly like the Lee, criticizing in fact its tall profile, the hull-mounted main gun, and the riveted armor plating, and some modifications were made. The modified tanks were called M3 Grants after the Civil War general, and the British purchased 1,685 examples. The main external difference between the M3 Lee and the M3 Grant was the latter's squatter British-designed top turret. M3 Grants first saw action with the British Army in the Western Desert in May 1942. Though they would soon be replaced by Lend-Lease M4 Sherman tanks, and the Grants shipped to India for service against the Japanese. Monty's tank is the so-called Grant Command, fitted internally with a map table and extra radio equipment and a dummy 37mm secondary gun in the turret. During the Battle of El Alamein, Monty's Grant was painted in a two-tone desert camouflage scheme. He didn't live aboard the tank, rather he used it to visit areas close to the front and observe the fighting, giving him a good all-terrain vehicle that provided the army commander with protection from artillery fire, mines, sandstorms and so on. It also enabled Monty to move about incognito, not drawing any attention to his presence, just another M3 tank going about its business. All British Commonwealth armoured formations utilised command tanks of one form or another, and were outfitted to suit the requirements of individual commanders, most importantly the much increased load of wireless sets. This particular tank was built by the US Pullman Standard Company in April 1942, and was Monty's first Grant command tank in the desert. Following Monty's defeat of Rommel at El Alamein, his Grant command tank next went into action during the invasion of Sicily, landing during the Allied invasion in July 1943, codenamed Operation Husky, and then onto the Italian mainland for the rest of 1943 and into 1944, part of 8th Army headquarters and used by Monty for forward observation on the battlefield, and also by other commanders when Monty was recalled to England in preparation for commanding all Allied forces forces during Operation Overlord, the D-Day landings in Normandy that occurred on the 6th of June 1944. Monty left instructions that, at the conclusion of the war, the tank should be given to his old unit, the Royal Warwickshire Regiment, and after display in the British occupation zone in Austria, the Grant was shipped to England in 1948 and installed as a gate guardian outside Budbrook Barracks in Warwick. When the Royal Warwicks joined the Queen's Division in 1968, Monty's old command tank was displayed at the division's depot at Bassingbourn. It was completely restored by volunteers between 1985 and 88 at the Armoured Vehicle Depot at Ludgershall in Hampshire and presented to the Imperial War Museum on the 6th of June 1988 for public display. The Imperial War Museum Duxford also owns Monty's famous command caravans, which formed his mobile headquarters and living accommodation during the drive across northwest Europe from the beaches of Normandy to the German surrender, but will be the subject of a separate video when I will deal with these fascinating vehicles and also Monty's frontline staff car that I found in a museum in Coventry. And of course Monty's special close protection unit of commandos. I can't help but think that British military history might be better served if the Imperial War Museum gathered all of the Montgomery vehicles into one area of the museum, both as an educational exhibit about Field Marshal Montgomery, but also about the wider Western Desert Campaign and the campaigns in Sicily, Italy, and northwestern Europe. The Montgomery was such a central figure too. The Monty connection would be an ideal way to interest people in this history because of the man's high profile and, of course, his controversial career. It would also be a fitting tribute to the members of the 8th Army and the 21st Army Group. What do you think? Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.